how's it going? I'm Mandy Whaley, and I'm super excited to be here today to talk with you. I lead our Azure Dev Tools team, and we build SDK libraries and tools that help any developer working in any programming language be successful on Azure. I'm really excited to be here today with Jessica to share some things with you about how you can use GitHub and Azure together.
And hi, everyone. My name is Jessica Deen. I'm a staff enterprise advocate here at GitHub, and I'm excited to be here with Mandy to talk about GitHub and Azure together. Kicking it right off, we're going to talk a little bit about GitHub. GitHub offers the best collaboration tools for you as developers. It helps you combine built-in security and AI capabilities so that you can build apps quickly, efficiently, and confidently. It's an enterprise-ready platform that helps you streamline your development process by providing everything you need in one easy place. It also offers best collaborative tools and has security integrated at every step of your workflow. And best of all, as we'll see today, it's powered by AI. Now with Azure, Azure helps you bring your ideas to life by leveraging a comprehensive set of tools and resources that, again, help you build, deploy, and manage your applications effortlessly. It also helps you seamlessly unify your resources by providing an integrated environment that enhances your collaboration and your efficiency. It helps you innovate on trust, and on top of that, it's going to help you, again, build and connect over to Azure. And we're going to learn a little bit about that right now.
Yeah. When you're using GitHub and Azure together, you get integrated developer workflows where you can access your GitHub resources, your Azure resources, right from within your IDE, like Visual Studio or Visual Studio Code. We're also working to make it really easy for you to streamline deployments using GitHub Actions and Azure together. And then with GitHub Actions and GitHub Advanced Security, you can build an incredible automation and security at every step of your CI/CD pipeline. So today, we're going to take a look at this end-to-end developer experience of how we start in our IDEs, where you're coding, where you can stay focused on your code, connecting to our DevOps and automation tools like GitHub and Azure DevOps, and then how all of that connects to Azure. Like I mentioned earlier, we work on making this entire journey successful for any developer in any language. So if you're a Python developer, you can use the tools that you love, and our libraries will feel Pythonic and idiomatic to you. And GitHub Copilot is there to help the whole way. We're going to take a look today at our DevOps lifecycle and how you can use GitHub and Azure along each step of the way. We're going to dive into the code phase, build, deploy, and operate. And we're going to do this by looking at an actual application. We're going to build a RAG pattern application, retrieval augmented generation. You might have heard about it in the previous session. This lets us build an AI-powered chat assistant for our Contoso outdoor store. This will allow us to build a chat experience where the information that the assistant's bringing back is grounded in our data. So when you ask for help about tents, you don't just get general information about tents. You get information about the tents we have in our store. And we're going to deploy all of this using GitHub Actions. And all of the things we're going to show today are available for you to try. The code's on GitHub. You can get started by going there and trying it out. And we're going to show lots of demos as we work through all of these stages. So next, I'm going to turn it over to Jessica to start on the code phase.
Thank you, Mandy. We're going to take a look at how GitHub and Azure work together when we're working with the code phase of our workflow. Now, Mandy mentioned that we're working a lot on tools and how we can make tools working with GitHub repos and Git as seamless as possible. That's where Visual Studio and Visual Studio Code comes in. We focus on things like seamless authentication so that we can make accessing your GitHub repos from your IDE as easy as possible. You can also use extensions like GitHub Copilot and GitHub Copilot Chat, again, directly from your IDE, directly from your editor, without ever having to leave your workflow or your developer inner loop. And we are always working on how we can make our tools and common Git workflows like create, merge, rebase, one of my personal favorites of undo last commit, without having to go to Stack Overflow and look things up. We want to make those as easy as possible, and we can do that in Visual Studio Code. Another challenge we're trying to solve is how we can make setting up your development environments easier. When you're setting up your new systems and your development environments with binaries, dependencies, depending on the language and framework and versions you're trying to work with, that can be very daunting. It can be very overwhelming. And then trying to scale that across your teams can feel almost impossible at times. This is where GitHub Codespaces comes in. It is your compute in the cloud. And one of my favorite ways of using GitHub Copilot is also in this day and age when we're working with RAG applications and large language models, maybe the systems we're using aren't as powerful enough as we need. This is another way where we can leverage cloud compute to be able to help run our development environments. All CodeSpaces really is your development environment running in a container in the cloud. And you can use your native extensions, whether that's GitHub Copilot, GitHub Copilot Chat, all of that can be done directly from within your GitHub Codespace. And GitHub Copilot is your pair programmer. It's always there to help with things like converting your comments to code, auto-suggesting tests that maybe you're struggling with trying to figure out what makes the most sense, or even showing alternatives and different ways of doing things. One of my personal favorites of using GitHub Copilot is actually serving as an educational tool. A little bit about my background. I came from the Kubernetes world. I came from Helm. I came from containers. And when I started working even on this session, I could barely spell LLM. I could barely spell AI. And I know that that's probably a common joke, but I promise you I had so many conversations with Copilot of what does this project do? How do I get started? What do I need? And the best part is it made approaching something that felt so big and so overwhelming, it made approaching that easy. And today, I want to show you how easy it is to use Copilot Chat, to use Visual Studio Code, and to use CodeSpaces. All right, so I'm starting off where I'm in my repo here. This is just a fork of the Contoso Chat repo that you can get started playing with today. And all you need to get started with CodeSpaces is your repo. You would simply navigate over to code. And if you're looking at it right off the bat, you would see local, where you could go ahead and clone, or you could click on the CodeSpaces tab. Now, in my case, I already have CodeSpaces that are pre-provisioned. In the event that I didn't, I would see a big green button right here that would prompt me to create a CodeSpace. Alternatively, another way I could click to create a CodeSpace is I could click this plus sign right here, where I could create a CodeSpace on my main branch. Or I could click the little dots, where I can actually create a CodeSpace configuration. And this will help me set up what's called a dev container. This is where I get to start defining all the extensions, all the binaries, everything that I need for my application. Now, as I mentioned, I do already have a CodeSpace, and I could choose to open that one of two ways. One, I can open it in the browser, or I can open it in my IDE. If I open it directly in the browser, you'll notice it's Visual Studio Code in my browser. I even have custom .dot files. I'm super big and power level 9K, 10K, and I'm able to have access to all of my same development environment directly in the browser, but it's running in the cloud. Now, just to show you, I'm on a Mac. I can type lsb_release-a and take a look right here. This is a Debian-based container. I'm using a Linux container on my Mac because, again, it's running in the cloud. Now, using CodeSpaces in the browser is awesome. It makes it very easy to get up and running, but I can also open it directly in Visual Studio Code. And you'll notice in Visual Studio Code, it's my same instance. It has my same extensions. A new extension that just got launched is Prompt Flow. We'll talk a little bit about that later on. I have Prompt Flow extensions provisioned. I have GitHub Copilot Chat. All of that comes ready to go. And now, as I'm learning how to get started with this particular project, I can navigate to my Copilot Chat, and I can ask it, what does this project do? Now, you'll notice that it starts off with @workspace, and I'll go ahead and just zoom in here while it's thinking. @workspace is taking a look at the files in my repo. It's taking a look at my GitHub Copilot workspace to analyze what does this file do. It's going to read the README. It's going to read the infrastructure files, and it's going to make sure that the answer it gives me is grounded in real data. I'm going to drag the chat over to the right-hand side because I like to have chat up with my Explorer, with my terminal. I like to kind of be able to do multiple things at once. And I can see that the chat has given me 6 references. And if I drop this down, it's using the files in the Explorer to give me an actual answer. It tells me it uses the Prompt Flow extension. It runs in Visual Studio Code. It uses Azure AI Search. It helps me become familiar with this project. One of the things I also like is it prompts me for other questions that maybe I didn't think of asking. That's really powerful if maybe I'm not even sure what to ask or how to prompt Copilot. Now, in my case, I do know exactly what I want to ask. I want to ask, where is the code that manages getting customers from chat? I'm curious how our chat application that we're working on actually builds. And again, it's using @workspace to take a look at where those files live, what's in the repo, and it's going to make sure that it provides an answer that's based on the data that's in this particular project repository. You can see it's currently filtering to the most relevant information. And scrolling up here, it gives me live responses. Again, it uses 4 references, and I can see there's some Python files in here. But scrolling down, it tells me the customer information is located in the getCustomer function in this particular file. And if I click it, and I'll go ahead and drop my terminal down, I can see that it opens right up. I can see the getCustomer function. Now, another way that I like to use Copilot is, let's say that I'm new and I don't quite understand what this code does. Right from within the editor, I can hit Command-I, or if you're on Windows, Control-I, and I can just use slash commands and say /explain. And then that way, I don't even have to think of, how do I phrase this? How do I ask this? I'm not quite sure what I'm even searching for. I can just say, explain what this code does, and it gives me an actual explanation explaining that this is connecting to Cosmos DB. It tells me there's an endpoint, there's a key. It shows how this works. Now, I like to set the next person up for success. I'm going to go ahead and start adding a comment here, and I'm going to say get, and then just like that, Copilot is also going to help me do some of the more mundane tasks that I struggle with, which is adding comments to code. Now that we have that set up, I'm going to turn this back over to Mandy, who's going to walk us through the build phase of our workflow.
Thanks. All right. Let's wait for the slide to get up. So now we're going to take a look at the build part of our project. And in this phase, we're looking at how do we take that code that we just got working on our local environment, which code spaces and dev containers were a huge help in making sure we had all the right dependencies and everything there. But now, how do we get that up and running in Azure, in the cloud for the first time? And this is important for our AI applications because a lot of times you need access to the cloud AI resources very early in your development process. And this can be a part where there's a lot of questions. How do I deploy this? What services do I need? How do I configure the services and provision them? So one of the tools we've been working on to help with that is the Azure Developer CLI. It's an open source tool. It's focused on a very dev-focused workflow with things like init, provision, deploy. You stay focused on what you're trying to do, and it helps you by configuring and provisioning resources and then deploying your code. There's one command, azd up, which actually combines a lot of those, init, provision, and deploy all in one step, which can help you get your application up and running. AZD empowers us to build end-to-end templates or blueprints, which is the example that we're using today, and we have many more for different kinds of Azure app patterns and AI patterns. And these templates include things like the infrastructure as code file, Terraform or Bicep, the actual GitHub Actions workflow files, and the actual application code all together. So you can get that up and running, see it, experiment with it, start to customize it, use it as a blueprint for where you want to take your application. Another thing that we're looking at is GitHub Copilot for Azure. So GitHub Copilot for Azure is an extension for GitHub Copilot, and it can help you with Azure-specific topics. You can use it right from within GitHub Chat, and you can ask things that help you manage your Azure resources, explore your Azure resources, get guidance, learn about the latest documentation and features, and also help you with troubleshooting and deployment to Azure. We're really excited at Build to be announcing that this is in private preview. We'd love for you to sign up, try it out with us. This is where we're going to be learning about what scenarios are the most helpful to you and building this together along the way. All right, let's take a look at some of these tools in a demo. OK, so I'm in VS Code. I'm working on the same code base that Jessica is working on. And because this is an Azure OpenAI related project, one of the things that I need to know is what is the endpoint for my Azure OpenAI resource? I may want to get this early in the process so I can start making API calls, and @Azure can help me with this. So because I'm logged into Azure in VS Code, it's using my subscription information, it's going out and looking at my actual resources, and it brings back the URL endpoint for this Azure OpenAI resource, which I can start experimenting with. That's super helpful, but I also may want to know more information about Azure OpenAI. And so I could ask, what models does Azure OpenAI support right now? And this is where we have an integration with Microsoft Learn. And this is great because it's going and getting the information from Microsoft Learn that you know is always the most up to date and bringing back the exact documentation that you're looking for. And one of my favorite things about it is that it finds the information, it brings it back in, and information you can just read in the chat. But it also, I'll let that finish. It's great. You can see we've got the latest models in there. And you can see that it brings back the actual references, the links. So if you want to follow those to go do deeper research or have those for a future reference, you've got those right there to help you. OK, next we want to take a look at getting our application up and running. So we're going to AZD up. This is where it's going to, oh, hold on.
Is it even a demo if there's not red text on the screen?
That's the way you know we're doing it live.
We're doing it live.
OK, here we go. 1 second. I don't know why that's going so slow. All right.
Here we go.
All right, so it's going to ask me some information. It's going to ask me for my environment name. I'm going to name this imw console chat. It's going to ask me about the subscription that I want to deploy this into. And it's going to ask me about the location, the region that I want to create these resources in. So after I give it all that information, my project is initialized. Now I can start using all of the different infrastructure as code files, can start configuring them, and start provisioning our resources. So you'll see it's going to go along, start putting all of that information together, and starting to compare what's currently in my subscription with what I have specified, and start to provision those resources. But we're in a demo, and we don't have a lot of time, so we're not going to wait for that, because I also want to show you AZD pipeline config. Oops. All right, so AZD pipeline config, like we mentioned before, this is the one that helps you with your GitHub Actions workflow. When we created this template, there is a GitHub Action workflow called Azure DevYAML that's included. This helps you deploy your application to Azure. But if you've ever done this before, when you're setting up your GitHub repository and your Azure subscription to work together, there's steps that you have to do. And you want to make sure that all of your secrets are stored securely, encrypted in GitHub Secret Store, your variables are handled correctly. So if we take a look right now in GitHub Actions, you can see I don't have any secrets, I don't have any variables. But if I run AZD pipeline config, OK. This is going to, OK. Didn't we init? Oh. Sorry, my bad. All right, AZD pipeline config. This is, I'm logged into Azure. It's going to start to set up that connection for me. So it is going to actually create the service principal. It's going to take the environment secrets from my project and start putting them into the places in GitHub where they're stored securely, stored correctly, setting up that for us. So we can watch that for a second. And if we are refreshing our secrets over here, we'll start to see that these start to get populated as these commands run.
And this pipeline config is working because this is set up for templates, right? Because
That's right.
It has that Azure.yaml where it knows that this is an Azure application that's pre-designed to work with GitHub.
Exactly. So it's starting to set these up. We can start to see them populating. We can see that our variables are getting put in. And the last thing that happens is the secrets get put in. So now our pipeline is set up. We could start immediately pushing and going and using our pipeline to deploy. One other thing that I wanted to show is that if I forgot all those commands or I couldn't remember how to use or find the information on AZD, Copilot can actually help me with that too. I can ask, how do I deploy this application? And because it has all these different artifacts and is set up as a template, it will recommend that you can deploy this using AZD. So it's going to bring back the information about using init and up, and even has the connection to go straight to AZD pipeline config if you're ready to set that up. So great. I am going to now turn it back to Jessica to talk about deploy and show us some more things with GitHub Actions.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Mandy. I love AZD pipeline config because I've been using GitHub Actions for a long time, and I have a collection of get secret scripts that set up service principals and personal access tokens and a bunch of things that are not secure. And let's be real, friends don't let friends use personal access tokens, okay? We are not in this world anymore. That's last year. We are now in the managed identity age. We want to set up things with OIDC and federated identity. And that's one of the things that AZD pipeline config does for us in one command. It's an amazing feature, and it makes using GitHub Actions so much easier than ever before. And if you're new to GitHub Actions, or if you haven't gotten a chance to play with it, it's the #1 CI/CD platform on GitHub. You can use it to automate, customize, and execute your software development workflows. A lot of people hear CI/CD and hear GitHub Actions and think it's for build, test, deploy. And it is. You are not wrong. but it's also to automate any job and any task that you can think of. And we'll look at that today because we've been playing with some new things. The way GitHub Actions works is you can write your own actions. So it has actions that you can be able to predefine or steps that you can predefine. But there's also a marketplace where you can go look at pre-built actions for you. And this is important because when it comes to taking a look at automating our workflow processes, studies have actually found that companies that adopt this have 208 times more frequent code deployments, 106 times faster commit to deploy lead times, and my favorite statistic is over 2,600 times faster recovery from incidents because we can be able to automate that recovery and fail fast. Now, I mentioned that the way GitHub Actions works is it uses actions. What does that specifically mean? It means that it's automating steps that, like I said, are pre-built from a marketplace. In that marketplace are Azure-specific actions. We call these GitHub Actions for Azure. And because they're Azure-specific, they're actually managed and maintained and owned by the Azure service teams. So you can have confidence when you're using these actions in your workflows, they're going to work. They're regularly updated, they're regularly maintained from Azure. And in addition to everything we've showed you today with the Azure Developer CLI, there's even a brand new action called the Azure OpenAI for Chat action, and that will also help you set up your workflow for your chat applications. Now, with workflows, I've talked about how you can use it for more than just build, test, and deploy. One of the things that we've been playing with is what other jobs or workflows do we as developers have to do when we're working with LLMs and RAG architecture? One of the things we have to do is run our prompt evaluations.
What are prompt evaluations?
I'm so glad you asked. Prompt evaluations are a way that you can help validate the quality of your prompts when you're working with prompt engineering. It helps you ensure that you're getting real answers and answers that are relevant. And in fact, actually, do you want to see what that looks like?
I do. And one of the things I really think is interesting about this is that prompt evaluations may be something new that you're learning, building these kinds of applications, but you're using something that you already know, use for other things, other kinds of automation, GitHub Actions, putting those together.
All GitHub Actions is the steps you would do manually. You're just putting it into a file to be able to run that automatically. Now, I'm going to go over into source control, and that does not seem to work in there. That's fine. We can use terminal old school. This is, again, doing it live. I'm going to go ahead and make sure that I add my amazing commit of adding comments. We're going to go ahead and say commit-m, add comments. Normally, if this were working with git commit, just to point out source control, is I can actually also use Copilot to help me generate commit messages. For me, the longer I've been working with my commits, the shorter and shorter my commit messages get, foo and arg and blah. I can use GitHub Copilot to help with that, and it'll automatically read my changes and help me with a commit message. In this way, I have to do old school. I have to YOLO and do it myself. So I'm going to go ahead and hit enter, which let's see if that works. There we go. And then we're going to go ahead and say git push, and I'm going to make sure I push the correct branch. Now, again, this is able to work and start firing off a GitHub Actions workflow, in part because we set up secrets using the Azure Developer CLI. I'm also going to use I'm going to create a pull request. I'm going to make sure I open this into my correct base repository, which you can see a lot of people have forked this. So we're going to go ahead and that is not, let's see. All right, let's go ahead and refresh this one more time. Nothing quite like doing it live. Well, you know what we're going to do? We're going to switch to a failover video. I know, it's so sad. We try to make sure that we get this up and running, but let's go ahead and start from this current slide. I want to make sure that I can show you.
Always be prepared.
Always be prepared is the moral of the story. And let's make sure we get to the right part. So we've checked in our code. You can actually see Copilot right here is helping us with a commit message. And right in here, I'm actually able to use also a pull request extension built right into Visual Studio Code. I can choose the correct base branch. In this instance, I'm also using Copilot to help me generate a commit message, or not a commit message, a pull request summary. And then we'll go ahead and flash forward here so we can start taking a look at what actually happens. Once you end up pushing that, it starts off where you're now seeing something that says 2 pending checks. If I drop this down, I can see that I have 2 workflows that just fired off. I have my build and deploy workflow, which is deploying my infrastructure out into Azure, but I also have an evaluate workflow, and this is that prompt flow evaluation. If we take a look at what that prompt flow evaluation looks like, I can see it took about 9 minutes to complete, and as part of any CI/CD, I'm going to have build artifacts attached to that. So moving, let's see if I can move a little faster here. If we take a look, I can see the 9 minutes, and there's my build artifacts of this is my summary results. But what does that actually mean? Do I have to download the build artifact every single time? Or is there a way to kind of publish a report where I can get real-time information telling me the quality, the relevance, the fluency, the coherence, the groundedness of my prompts, so now that I can be sure and confident in our chat application that the answers we're going to get back are something that's going to be actually helpful.
Yeah, I love being able to build the summaries and have that so easily understandable.
And the summaries are markdown. So, I mean, you can publish any information to it. In fact, on our build and deploy, we're also publishing some deep information. We're publishing links that's actually, we can send those links anywhere, but we have deep links that send us back over into Azure. So we can take a look at our Azure resources, and you can see that's loading right now. We can see that this is everything that we get deployed by these templates, by the way, 27 different deployments. And we can take a look at our 𝗦𝗲𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀 web application, which is opening in a new tab. And when we actually communicate with our application, how can I be helpful today? I can say, tell me about your tents. We mentioned tents earlier, right? And we want to make sure that it doesn't get information from every tent in the world. I want tents that are specifically sold from the 𝗦𝗀𝗀𝗀 outdoor store. Maybe, I mean, we're in Seattle right now. It's camping season. We're in the summer. Maybe I'm looking for a new summer tent. I want to be able to see the stars. I want to be able to see the sky. I want to be able to get ideas of what tents I can purchase from this particular store.
I want a tent with a good rain guard.
Yes, especially if it was yesterday because it was raining. Let's go ahead. There you go. You can see that I get my response back. There's a 2-person tent right here. And in a second, I believe my video will zoom in here as well. And you can see that I have product IDs associated with this as well. So now I know that these are products from the store. It's giving grounded information, and it's our data.
Yeah.
Now with that, I'm going to actually switch back over to our PowerPoint here. Live redundancy, guys, on stage. This is it. All right. So now that our application is up and running and our pipeline has been established, we're ready to move into production and start thinking about day 100. One of the things we have to really think about, and we should be thinking about from the very beginning, is also security. And I mentioned when it comes to GitHub, we have security integrated every step of the way in every part of the platform. One of the things we do is we have code scanning, we have secret scanning, we focus on supply chain security with things like Dependabot alerts. And we've known that we have code scanning for a while now, right? It can take a look at our code. It can make helpful suggestions. It uses CodeQL. It can help us address problems earlier in our development workflow. But most recently, we added the generative AI functionality to Copilot to make it even better. This uses generative AI to provide editable suggestions that fix detected vulnerabilities right in our pull requests, and it helps you as developers understand targeted recommendations of how to get this out faster, quicker, and more securely.
That's amazing that it can help both detect the vulnerability and then also suggest the fix, and then I can use Copilot to just do the fix. And so that's amazing. One thing that I was also thinking about is with our 𝗦𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀 chat application, as we start to add more people, have new contributors, if they're not familiar with our best practices for handling secrets, if they don't understand how to use the GitHub Secret Store, like, is there something that GitHub Advanced Security does to help us with that?
There absolutely is. I got you. We have AI-powered secret scanning, and AI-powered secret scanning actually scans for over 200 different token types, and it's supported by a partner program of service providers to help you detect leak secrets at scale. And this is great because it can let you know when you do have a secret that's compromised.
Amazing. But what if I want to stop it from like ever even getting into my repo? Can it help with that?
It absolutely can. It has something that's called push protection, which will also prevent you from pushing commits that have secrets or information that you don't want in your GitHub repo, that you don't want pushed. It'll prevent you from pushing that in the first place. And I can actually show you what that looks like.
Can we see it? Yeah.
Yes. I'm going to switch to the right repo. Okay, now we got it. We can do tech support. So in the settings feature of your repository, right under code security and analysis, if you scroll down, there's an entire section for secret scanning here. Now, I want to talk a little bit about just a few of these things. This is literally you click it and you enable it, and you're ready to go. What that means is it'll automatically verify if a secret is valid. It'll scan for non-provider patterns. You can also define custom patterns, but my favorite is this push protection that, like I said, is going to block commits that contain supported secrets, and it's literally just a single button. So what happens is when I'm in my editor, and I'm going to be the problem. Hi, it's me. I'm the problem. I'm the developer that hasn't figured out managed identity, and you know what? That's a tomorrow problem. In the meantime, I'm going to use this credential today. And you can see I have, don't worry, this credential isn't actually real, but I have this credential that I've hard-coded because I'm just going to do some quick testing. I'm not going to don't worry about SecOps. It's fine. We don't need to do a Sev 4 or anything, or Sev 0. But what I am going to do is I'm going to go ahead and try to commit this. And I want everyone to see this commit message.
I think it should be, do not try this at home.
It should be probably, or it should be, hi, it's me, I'm the problem. But what's the worst that can happen? Great, we committed it. Now I'm going to go ahead and try to push. And I mentioned earlier, like red text and demos, you never want to see that. Actually, you do. In this case, I really do, because GitHub Advanced Security is going to save me from myself. You can see that the remote rejected it. It said it failed to push, and if I scroll up, it tells me the commit that it pushed, it tells me the access token or the secret that it pushed, and it also gives me the path of exactly where that lives. So now it helps empower me as a developer to know, you know what? I do need to follow security's rules. I do need to use Azure Key Vault or managed identity and not be using real keys. And it helps you as the project manager and the developer also be confident that you don't have to worry about new developers coming in and risking leaking important secrets.
That's amazing. I like how GitHub Advanced Security kind of has your back on that. It's great. All right, so we've had a great time today talking with you about GitHub and Azure. Hopefully you've learned some new things along the way. Hopefully we kept it fun and authentic with live demos. We're excited to be here, and we will be hanging out in the back with any questions that you might want to follow up on. Some of the things that you get with working with GitHub and Azure together are, like we said, the integrated developer workflows with code spaces, Copilot, everything right in your IDE and editor so you can stay focused on your code. And then the streamlined deployments, bringing together GitHub Actions and Azure, tools like the developer CLI, AZD pipeline config, the provided actions for you to help make that easy to bring together. Also the GitHub Actions for Azure, which are out-of-the-box actions you can use. And then all the great things that you can build into your pipeline through automation, like prompt evaluations, taking GitHub Actions, using them for a new purpose, so you always know how your prompts are performing. And then also the code scanning and GitHub Advanced Security features. So like we mentioned at the beginning, everything's here for you to try out. You can follow these links to get to the samples, to explore more application templates that we have, sign up for the preview, and explore more about Copilot and security. And before we end, I really want to thank all the amazing teams whose work is in this talk, from both GitHub and Azure, and all the teams that have made all of this possible. It's a really great set of tools, and we hope that you check it out. Thanks for being here today.